Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with Reishi Unlimited, and I would like to thank you all for being here. And I would like to welcome my guest, Nancy Smith, for being with us. And you're going to enjoy this conversation because we've had a backstage conversation that's been fabulous. So
It's
you're only
wonderful.
going to love it even more as we move forward. And I think you wanted to ask where I'm going, and I'm on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook right now, live.
Beautiful. Hi.
So three of them. Yeah. Yeah. So, Nancy, tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
So I do a lot of things, but they're all integrated into one thing. I'm a medium. I am a minister for the Spiritualist Church. I also am a Akashic Records practitioner, meaning that I use the wisdom of the Akashic Records, which is basically source,
Mhm.
to access my soul, your soul, whoever I'm working with soul, to kind of get to what's really going on. I have training in shamanic training. I have energy work training,
Mhm.
and then I have real life training. So that's
That's a
kind of
big one.
it's a big one.
Real life training is the best, isn't it?
No,
As
darn
we
it! I was hoping to skip that school, but
I know, right? Hi, you
yeah.
guys. Thank you for being here. Hi, Eddie. Hi, Parrot. And Marcia is here. Marcia Johnson is here.
Hi, Marcia. It's good to see you. Good to see
So,
you.
what I want to do is kind of start a little bit back and then we'll come back into where we left off.
Mhm.
But we were talking about that we all have choices and we don't always know that we have choices, or we don't know that we
Right.
can actually decide what choice to pick, which is a big thing, right? About
Right.
choices we want to do.
Right. Right. You know, I just want to say, without going down a rabbit hole, I see us divided into three levels of consciousness, and then there's a fourth level of consciousness, which is the source.
Mm-hmm.
And the first level, well, not in any kind of order, but is your aware self. Think of a tree. So the aware self is the trunk of the tree, and it connects the higher self and the unconscious or lower self
Mm-hmm.
together to create life, to have your life, to do your life. So sometimes when we're in our higher self, we say, "Oh, this is could be, and this could be, and that could be," from that higher self perspective. But then when we drop down into our lower self, or our unconscious, which is our belief systems, our fears, our traumas, then we live from that. And it's our aware self that needs to make the bridge. But if we're not living in our aware self, which is pretty much easy to do,
Yeah.
then something takes over and drives the bus.
So, how do you think people, because I get what you're saying, it's very easy to live in that lower self, right? Because that's where we're used to being. We could be pulled into our daily activities or the drama of the day, whatever can bring us there.
Yeah.
How do we get back into our higher self and stay within that realm?
Well, first of all, you come into your aware self.
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel? Where am I? Which am I? What direction are my feet pointing in? Am I happy? A sense of well-being and happiness indicates that we're in our aware self, or we're going in the right direction. If we're totally stressed out and lost, then we're in a place of deep grief or a place of reaction, and then we need our help from our higher selves. We need help from our aware selves. We need to shift where we are, or sometimes we just need to feel bad for a while and just realize we're going to be in the hole for a little bit, and we protect ourselves. So that, I hope that's just answering your question a little bit. But being in your higher self all the time, and if you ever known people who live from the neck up to their higher self, they reject their human experience, and there can become a schism happens.
Mm-hmm.
So then unreality sticks in, or somebody will you'll often hear people say things that are very altruistic, or they're very unlivable, they're unreachable, and so that's not always a good choice either.
Right.
So it needs to be an integrated choice. I use that word a lot, integrated, where you're
Which is,
honest. Yeah.
yeah, that's really important. But that's the other thing we were talking about is we can't always be honest with ourselves. We can fool ourselves, or we don't
Oh
give
yeah.
ourselves permission to be having a bad day or to be in the pity party for a period of time as long as we don't
Right.
stay there forever.
Right.
Which is also something, because I know, and especially in our world, the woo woo world, we tend to feel like we have to always be on this higher vibrational resonance, and what you think you create, so we can't be thinking about being in a
Oh,
negative
yeah.
state. But
Yeah.
we are human beings that will have those time periods.
Well, we are. And years ago I kind of looked at this.
Mhm.
You know what the most powerful emotion on this planet is that will change everything? You
What
know,
is
some people, what would you say it would be?
love?
Yeah. You know, it is rage.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
rage.
really?
It's rage.
Wow.
Rage is, and if rage is connected into self love and awareness,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to stop
Mm-hmm.
until, think of a, I compare it to a mother bear or a mother whose child is in trouble. You
Mm-hmm.
already have that bonding, and you're going to stop at nothing till that child is safe.
Right.
But and when I thought about that, I was kind of new into the spiritual practice in my
Mhm.
spiritual world. I said, well, that's not a very spiritual emotion until I realized that as humans, we live in a human body. We live with emotions. We live with
Mhm.
feelings, and that drives us. And if we ignore that, even though we're spirits having a human experience, if we ignore the human suit we're in, we're not going to have the experience that our soul has designed us to have. And that's where the honesty comes in. How do I really feel? I'll tell you a story. We started talking about the story behind, before we got on live. And I was going through a really hard time with a divorce. I had two tiny kids, and I was feeling very guilty and sad about the divorce. And I felt a responsibility towards my children. Um, I had never been without them ever. And here we were having visits every other weekend.
Mhm.
They were not in my eyesight, and I was feeling really anxious about that.
Mhm.
I developed insomnia for 3, 4 months. I had only snapped for like a couple hours at a time, and I was getting pretty sick from it, pretty messed up
Mhm.
from it, as anyone would from that kind of insomnia. So I started. My mom suggested pray the Rosary, which you're Catholic, and that made sense because it was repetitive and soothing and stuff. And at one point, one day, weeks into this, it was 4 in the morning. I wrapped myself up in a blanket to get hot and warm and started saying the
Mhm.
rosary, thinking I was going to bore myself to tears. But I went into this kind of trance like state. And this woman came up to me and said, how am I going to help you if you keep saying those Our Fathers and Hail Marys? You're not telling me what's going on. And she reached inside of my solar plexus and touched something. That's where most of the emotional pain was, and just started speaking from that pain. And she articulated things and thoughts inside of myself that I had never thought to say out loud.
Wow.
And she said them so clearly, and I felt so much better after that prayer had been said. And she turned to me and she said, this is what I need to hear from you so that I can help you. And so when you speak to me that way, I can come within all the words and I can bring you healing. And I was stunned, absolutely stunned, because I had never thought of having a spiritual connection with a higher power that actually cared about how I felt. And
Wow.
not only that, but it was meaningful to her. It meant something to her. And so that was my big, big lesson. And that's one of the lessons that I like to share with people, so we can give ourselves permission to be human and have those foibles, have those feelings, make those big mistakes and learn from them.
I think the one thing that I've learned through my process is that anger, or as you said, being any kind of like hysterical or angry or rage or any of that, they're all in the same family. It's what we do with that that's the issue.
Right, right,
Now, if we can let it go, and we can, because it is kind of like when you have a teapot and the steam starts coming out and you release that
right,
top and the steam can come out. It's putting yourself, I think, in perspective if you can do it where you're being in control. Like, I've had situations where I've been hitting up against something and you just have to finally break to be able to
right,
move forward. And I think
right.
that we give ourselves, and I know I do, I give myself a hard time if I'm not being in control all the time, or if I'm not happy all the time. That's a
I
real.
hear you. It is. It's a huge, big thing. One of the things that I teach my students, or clients, and I do myself, is I go into sacred space.
Mhm.
And I have my routine for going into sacred space. It's kind of like a meditation and a visualization blended together, but it's basically creating, putting myself in the presence of God, and
Mhm.
I'm relaxing in the presence of God. And when I'm there, I'll bring up my emotions. I bring up my frustrations, and I'll sit with it, so that I'm not alone with my feelings. Because lots of times our big feelings, our big emotions give us an illusion that we're separated from God, we're alone and we're isolated. So I bring these big emotions to my guides, to my, my team, and then we just quietly sit together and send it love. We send it appreciation. I accept myself. I surrender to how I'm feeling, but I don't give it the keys to the car.
That's the key. That's the key. Hello. That was funny. But what I hear often is people don't know how to do that. They don't know
Yeah.
how to let go. They don't know it's okay to be able to do that and not
Yeah.
lose control. And also the
Yeah.
other side of that, though, and I've heard this a lot, and I've experienced it through some of the experiences I've had, where you just feel numb. So it's like, how do
Yeah.
you connect to your
Yeah.
team? Or
I hear you.
you know that we
Hear
are
you.
connected,
Yeah.
but you don't feel like you're connected.
Exactly. No, I'm right on board with you with that. And one of the things that I talk about, and I talk about this not because it's off the top of my head, it's because I've been down too many rabbit holes. I've done it.
Mhm.
Is that love accept where you are, surrender to where you are. And the other thing is find the value in it. Our emotions are energy in motion. I think of the infinity movement here. They're energy in motion, and they're designed to deliver a message. They don't have any wisdom in them, but they need to deliver the message. And until we get the message, they're not going to shut up. So to sit in that sacred space, what I'm doing is also, what do you want to say to me?
Mhm.
What is the message? What is it you need to deliver to me? And sometimes I like to walk around the world with rose-colored glasses thinking everything's fine, and my frustration and anger is telling me it's not the perfect thing you think it is. It's this over here.
Mhm.
And it's the emotions is telling me to turn on.
Mhm.
And once something is observed in sacred space,
Mhm.
it's the law of vibration.
Mhm.
Every The law of vibration says that everything wants to vibrate at the same pace. It wants to harmonize, but it harmonizes to the higher vibration, as opposed to water that goes to the lowest level.
Mhm.
So if vibration is going to the highest vibration, and emotions are energy in motion, and they're vibrating, if I present it in front of a higher vibration of my highest self of God, that energy, that emotion will begin to blossom. It won't take over my life and take me down the wrong path. Instead, it will reveal itself to me, who it really is, what it's really having to say. And then it says, can I go home now? Or it'll want to integrate into me, and it'll want to be happy, because in our core sense is to be happy and to have a sense of well-being. And when we're not in a place of happiness and well-being and something's wrong, um, we need to listen, get the message, and then we need to pull back, not identify with the reactions. This is the other piece: is we get an emotion, and before we feel it, we react to it all over the place.
Mhm.
So we need to sort out: is this a reaction to something I don't know yet? So I like to write down all the feelings, and then I kind of can get a
Mhm.
feel for what is the reaction, and then what's underneath it. Lift the hood of the car up and go, what's underneath this? And then as I go underneath, I'll find the root of the emotion, which could be abandonment, could be fear, could be
Mhm.
betrayal, could be a revelation of something that I never was willing to look at before. And
That's
and
interesting. So, how do you keep that balance to be able to be honest with yourself, to be able to, one, I hear that you're sitting in the quiet, you're also doing journaling. So you're allowing
Mhm.
this energy to flow through you. And yet, I know when I do that kind of thing, I'm going to have all kinds of feelings, right? You're going to have the
Yeah.
ups and the downs. How do you focus in on that to narrow it down to what's going to help you to move forward?
Well, it's gonna be chaotic at first, and
Mhm.
it's not gonna make sense, and you're gonna be say, "Screw this, I'm not doing this anymore." And when you observe yourself, stop
Mhm.
working on it. If you're st and then step back, do
Mhm.
something, cook a dinner, iron your clothes, vacuum the floor, go for a walk,
Mhm.
and then let it, your unconscious and your higher conscious. I often will ask my higher conscious self and my aware self and my unconscious, I want you guys to work it out and then show up and let me know what's going on, because it gets so awful. But they're willing to do that, believe it or not. But and then come back and see where the energy's stuck. See where the wheel keeps turning in on itself over and over and over again. That's stuck energy. That's a reaction pattern that's usually in trauma or a belief system that you can't let go of that belief. It has to be this way, no matter what the solution is, no matter where the wisdom is, it has to end up in this corner. And that corner is not a place of wisdom. It's a place either of beliefs that we've learned since we were tiny,
Mhm.
or it's a reaction to a trauma, or any number of those things. So as we recognize it as being stuck, that's where the healing needs to be directed. And
So, just so people are really clear what you're saying, because we were talking earlier about this, how do you know what is your belief, right, or not taught to
oh
you?
yeah, I
How do
know.
you know what is the belief that is actually going to benefit you versus pulling you down, which is what you're talking about? We have
Right.
these different feelings. How do we break through all that and know that we're on the in the right direction,
Yeah.
or we're looking at the right energy that we need to either embrace or let go of?
Well, one tool that I have for figuring that out is I'll write the belief down. Um I'll never make more than 50,000 a year. Believe, I'm
Hmm.
just throwing that out. And I'll never be rich.
Hmm.
So I'll never be rich because um because if I'm rich, I'll be a snob and I won't be kind to people. And if I'm a snob and I'm not kind to people, people will reject me and they won't like me and I won't be a good person. And if I'm not a good person, I won't I won't this. And if I don't have this, then I won't have that. And you take it all the way down to the most lowest point you could go with
Hmm.
it. And you can kind of um, right there is where the core belief is, or that's telling you you can never be rich. Do you see what I'm saying? You just That's a tool that I use to kind of uncover, and I'm uncovering really cool, amazing, wonderful stuff. That I'm holding on to that thought. But
Hmm.
if it's really taking me to a place of either self-destruct or minimizing how I feel, or I just feel my well-being goes out the window, I don't like myself anymore, that's a belief structure. And it's usually a part of ourselves that's protecting ourselves, and it's the emotion that takes us further and further away from our soul, from our spirit. And it can take us to such a dark place that our soul can't even reach it. We shut the door to our spirituality, and when the door to my spirituality is shut, that's what I know. Wait a minute, I got a belief structure going on here that
Hmm.
thinks it's alone, that thinks it's isolated.
Hmm.
So you'd be willing to look at yourself in kind of like parts like that, compartment. Where have I compartmentalized this? And if we, and also, like I said, I will get to that point and then I feel exhausted and I don't know what to do with it, and nuts to this.
Hmm.
I'll ask either my sacred mother or my spirit guide to come in and help me with it, can help me elevate this, help me find a new way of thinking about this.
Hmm.
What really does work? What's the truth about life? What's the truth for my soul? And I tell you what, that your soul and your guides will show up in 2 seconds. They'll be right there, and even faster than 2 seconds, to gently calm you down.
Hmm.
And when the other tool that I use is breathing and calming my mind down until the alpha waves come in. Those are the creative, loving waves. Until that part of my brain that loves myself starts showing up, and then I just look. Well, I don't look for the answer. I'm not trying to get it. I'm just being present with that gentle, loving energy until I start to have a new thought, have a new, what do I want to experience instead of this? And
I
then
love that what you said, don't fight with it, because I feel like that's one of the biggest things that we tend to do, especially when we're sitting in the quiet, right? We have this mind
right,
that we don't know which is which. Is this me? Is this spirit? Is who's talking here? What's going on? But also, we play this record within our own mind. So just being like not forcing it, not pushing it to happen, but like I love how you described it, because it
thanks.
felt like it was just this beautiful flowing from one emotion to the other without judgment or without pushing or without causing it
Oh,
to happen.
don't exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we give it space and it'll do the
Yeah,
dance all on its own. And we
yeah,
give it love and then we invite in that higher power.
right.
And yeah.
I think also there's a lot of criticism happening in what you had said earlier about the woo woo world or any kind of spirituality. That there's labels, like there's a lot of labels going on about what it is, new age, whatever. How do we know where we're at and what we're looking at? Because I know there's a lot of people right now that are on this whole new age thing and this is a bad thing. And to me, I feel like the path that I'm on is my path in spirituality, connecting
Mhm.
with my soul and my team.
Yeah, I
How do
like
you
that. How do
how
you
do,
know?
how do you know? How do you get through that or know that you're
Yeah.
on your right path?
Um a couple ways, few
Okay.
pieces, because I have lots of rabbit holes, lots of things that I trip into all the time, my Achilles heels. It's how do I feel about my life?
Hmm.
How easy is it for me to feel grateful? Do I feel safe? Do I feel loved or do I feel isolated? And
Hmm.
all of that is my mind,
Hmm.
telling me certain things. The New Age movement has brought us a lot of tools, a lot of gifts, a lot of really amazing ways to look at things differently. On the other hand, it also has brought in un how can I say this? Do you know in the old days, back in Black Plague days,
Hmm.
they didn't understand how the disease was working. They
Hmm.
had no idea about germs, so they decided it was sin.
Hmm.
And the sin, if you're sick or something, you could easily be rejected because you're a sinner, you're a sinful person. So the priest comes in and
Hmm.
smokes you up and blesses you, and then you become ostracized because you're sick. And then there is wisdom in ostracizing people who are sick, but that was not the. They said you're a sinner. In any event, that hasn't really been removed from humanity.
It hasn't.
When we're wrong about something, now I've seen this happen to women. I've had breast cancer and I've seen other women with breast cancer, and I have heard other people say, what did you do to deserve this? What did you do to cause this to happen? And that I said, oh gee, that sounds like back in the old days, medieval days. It sounds a little medieval to me. It's simply energy that's moving through yourself, moving through your body, and your body is um, so many things. It's also very sensitive to stuff,
Mhm.
and we're in a very crazy environment. And disease happens. We're fragile. So if we are going to condemn ourselves for being ill rather than hold ourselves and love ourselves, because when we're ill, that's what we need. We need to be loved and held and whole, because
Mhm.
you know who doesn't.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, there is a disownment. There's a disownment, or something's being disowned here about the human development or the human progress, that says when you're off, either dis-ease or when you're off,
Mhm.
you don't need to necessarily find out why or get down to the course of it.
Mhm.
You do, if knowing the root is helpful, but mostly you're out of love. Get back to the love.
Yes,
Help each
that's
other get back
cool.
to the love. And can
Yeah.
we just remember that? You know?
I love what you said about disease because when I went through, I did a whole first part of my life was nutrition and ailments and herbs and all that stuff. And they really push that, right? When your body is out of sorts in dis-ease, meaning you did
Right.
something wrong and therefore your body is fighting back with you. When all your body is actually doing is saying you are out of alignment and then you have to come back into alignment. So I love how you said that because instead of beating ourselves up for it,
Right.
we need to love back into it and understand what it is that's out of sorts instead of beating our, and it kind of brings me, I don't know why this is coming up again, but the whole thing about what you create, what you think, that's been something that's really been on my mind in the way that I think we use that in the same
Mhm.
way that you just spoke about judging other people. They
Right.
brought this on, or we judge ourselves, we brought this on. And I know I was talking to a friend of mine, she goes, oh, my elbow's been hurting me and blah 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 blah. And as I was tapping into her, I did realize that she's not being flexible. And so I said to her, well, what are you not being flexible in your life? And of course, right away, she went right to, oh, I
Different.
need to do all this other stuff. And I had to stop and go, wait a minute, that's not what I'm saying. Your elbow just hurts because you did something. But I do feel like there's that balance between using it to adjust in our life. And
Mhm.
also realizing that it's just a part of our human body instead of
Right.
everything is labeled to we did something wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're always doing something wrong. We're
I,
always messing up,
I am.
and it's always feeling like, ugh. And we have a lot of nerve endings through our whole body, including emotional nerve endings. So
Mhm,
let's just give it up. Let's surrender. We're going to do it wrong. But when we have a flag that comes up, whether it's an emotional
mhm,
feeling of out of sorts, or it's depression, or it's a our body is telling
mhm.
us this is wrong. For me, it's wrong. I'm not happy. I've been
Exactly.
overextended or something, and we turn back with compassion.
Yes.
Turn back
Yes.
with compassion, and I feel like healers.
Hmm.
The best thing you can do is teach your client how to be compassionate towards themselves again, how to believe themselves when they don't feel right, instead of overriding. No pain, no gain is, there's a
Hmm.
point to that, and I get that, but there's also a place where it goes too far and becomes destructive.
Absolutely.
So,
I've seen that in me. I tend to be the workhorse that's going to keep plugging away, keep moving forward, keep going forward. You could do this. You can get to that other end without remembering that you need to have the what you said, compassion, the kindness, the
yeah,
self-love for
yeah.
yourself.
Well, the reason why I say this, the reason I come to this point isn't, I
Hmm.
probably read it in several thousand books, but we are created from love. When our soul and the source, God, the creator, came together, and the whole teams of angels and guardian angels and guides and
Hmm.
loved ones came together to create us, they created us from love.
Hmm.
And so our bodies, our emotional bodies, our mental bodies respond to all kinds of types of love. There's love and discipline. There's love and fun. There's love in being rebellious. But there's also that connection to, I feel okay and I'm surrounded by love. When we return back to that, that's where healing. We send to pull ourselves together to become whole. And so we're created from love. But when we remember that, then we get better, or we don't, not get better in the way we think we should get better, but we step on the path to well-being.
Exactly. I love that you said that. Because we sometimes we have this kind of benchmark of what we think we should
Yeah.
be at, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's maybe not high enough or it's too high. Most of the time, it's too high.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're hard on ourselves. I
we're
feel like very hard. And even if somebody's not being hard on themselves, they're being hard on themselves because they're outside of the love of God. This is what mediumship taught me.
mm-hmm.
Um, in bringing spirit messages through, I used to be terrified to get up in front of people until spirit really showed me physically, viscerally showed me that when I am speaking to spirit from the other side, I'm standing in love. I'm standing in a vibration that feels very loving, that I recognize, and I'm fine, and I'm good with it. My whole body feels good with it. And a lot of mediums will say they could come in with a bad cold or raging headache. They get into mediumship, everything goes away. They feel great. And then they're done with the mediumship. The colds come back because they still have to take care of themselves. But they, it's so when we're in that higher power
Mm-hmm.
of spirit communication, which is, to me, source is the creator. Everything is created from love because that's the energy that we're from. Um, and I think if we probably made it into a color, there's lots of different colors of love, but this is its own specific thing. That's when we remember who we are and remember what our bodies are designed to do.
You brought up a phrase a couple times, and I know you're a reverend, so I'm going to preface it on that. But I'm going to be careful with where we go because it could be controversial too. But I know a lot of people come from different religious backgrounds, different sects, whatever, our beliefs, our
Mhm.
family raising, or whatever happened. And God could be a word that could be triggering to people.
Right, right.
How did you come to? Because I know that you're a reverend, you also do mediumship, you're in the woo woo world, and there's a lot of controversy about the word God, who God is.
Right.
How did you experience that, or how did you process that for yourself?
Well, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
years of sorting this out. And I started to use the word source
Mhm.
as opposed to God, especially in a lot of when I'm talking to a lot of different people, because to me, God, creator and source
Mhm.
are the same thing. When I say Holy
Mhm.
Spirit, it's I'm from my Christian Catholic faith, which I adore, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
Mhm.
In the Jewish tradition has 72 names for God. Um,
Wow,
but
I did not.
yeah, it's like I don't know what they all are, but Yahweh, I know that one. But it's the God in a lot of religions
Mhm.
kind of conjures up a man with a beard who's very critical and a father figure who's ready to you out. And I've noticed that I love to study world religions, the old
Mhm.
ones, the new ones,
Mhm.
ancient ones. The perception, even if you read the Bible, Old Testament all the way through, the perception of the deity that is God changes as humanity matures. And and at the time, I feel like Christianity, I don't think anyone really gets what Christianity was about, shifted
I agree.
the um, mindset of what the relationship is to God the Father. And I won't go on too much about this, but I came to understand that God not as a feminine, not as a masculine, although there are feminine, masculine aspects of God, and
Mhm.
I think those feminine and masculine elements are needed for creation.
Mhm.
But when you come together to the whole, it's an amazing source of highly creative energy that all things are possible, and it's loving.
I think
That's
you said it right. It's that God source, whatever you want to say to it. See, I'm still in the, I don't even know what it is yet. I know who it is. I know the energy of it, but what to
yeah,
title it, I don't have that yet. But it is that balance, right? Which is something we're supposed to have within ourselves, that balance between
yeah,
feminine, masculine, that
right.
balance between happy and whatever emotion, all the emotions, there's that balance of it. Because we're not always happy. We're going to be unhappy at
No,
times. We've
yeah,
got to
that'd
be
be
working at
yeah,
times. We're more serious at
yeah,
times. But it's that balance. And that's when I think of God, because I grew up a Catholic as well, very much into religion for most of my life, read the Bible over and over again. And I love what you said about, Christians don't tend to really have the whole picture,
yeah,
which is their path. It's just what they're experiencing
yeah.
in this life. But I know in the woo woo world, a lot of people, like I already saw Eddie go trigger alert, because it's a trigger for people, right? Because I
It
don't,
is.
knowing usually we come from some kind of background in religion,
Oh yeah.
and we don't know how to word this. We don't know how to move forward with that. And so
Yeah.
I was intrigued with how would you.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces in my development that moving from the Catholic tradition,
Uh-huh.
they're called a recovering Catholic many
Uh-huh.
times.
Uh-huh.
Although I do love the rituals and routines of it,
Mhm.
is the first thing to let go of was the idea that I needed somebody to save my soul. I needed another energy to save my soul. That my atonement comes vicariously through another being, through another
Mhm.
um, the and letting that go and knowing that I am my own authority, that I am my own um, spiritual self. I
Mhm.
am a child of God, and I'm directly connected to God, and there's nothing between us unless I want there to be, or if there is something between us, I'm choosing to put it there. Um,
Yes,
if that makes any sense.
it does. But I think that in general, I feel like the word God gives so much power to this
Yeah.
energy that's not really, I mean, our life is our life to be living and make choices for and in, learn from, and do good things as we move forward. It's
Right.
our life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have these helpers that are with us along our path. And yet I still feel like source energy, the God source, is still very much active, but it's, I don't know, for me, I guess one of the things I've looked at it is it's like the center for the whole. Like it's just that guiding
Yeah.
light of the whole
Yeah.
of all of us being here and choosing this experience on earth.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, you said the center, the whole, or the center of the whole, or something, and it just what popped into my head was this image that the buckyballs, but or the net. that
Mm,
God is, we're
yeah.
all connected, and God is the energy of the net that connects us
Yeah.
all together. That's one way of looking at it. God
Yeah.
is not this. It's easy to personify God,
Mm,
and many religions have done that, and many to
mm,
keep their people in line.
mm,
And the tarot has this card called the Hierophant card,
mhm.
where the Hierophant card is all about teaching the rules of the religion, the rules of the school, so that people can become indoctrinated and they learn to live together. They learn right and wrong. But there's a point in your development and your maturity, especially spiritual development, when the right or wrong doesn't exist anymore, because you're living in that flow of being in relationship to a higher power. So you would never, so what you think doesn't have to be forced and put into a container anymore. You can let it go. Um,
Mhm.
so, but you're mature enough and developed enough to let it go. Just if
It's
that makes
funny
any
when you
sense.
said, coming to that place where it doesn't have that same power over you anymore. You're just moving forward.
Yeah.
But yet we so easily go back into, and so many things in the world bring us back into that anger. Like you said earlier, we talked about rage, things like that can bring you back into, but I have to force something. I have to do something. I have to be
Right.
something. I have to, which I think then brings us back out of that being in the hole. And it causes it to be very difficult to stay in that, I guess, that
Right.
place,
Right.
right? Of
Right.
just being the acceptance of who we are
Right.
and
Right.
moving forward in that acceptance, which is so difficult to do.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's a practice.
It's
It's a
a practice
practice.
for sure.
There when in psychic defense or psychic protection, you probably have taken a number of classes and taught a few things yourself about psychic protection. And one thing I don't know if you've had this experience or have come to realize something, but when I'm in alignment to the highest source, the
Mhm,
high that I could get,
mhm,
um, that's my protection.
mhm.
It's like
Exactly.
I no longer need to do the thing over here and the thing over here. Although I do the thing over here and I mean, I still wash my hands because I know there's germs, but the protection, the highest protection I can have is being aligned with
Yeah.
source, being aligned with my soul,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I'm not worried about if somebody gave me a hex. I'm not worried about if um, with this. Um, I'm not worried about being attacked the way that I used to be worried about being attacked. Uh, I I don't know how I'm trying to put this into good
Well,
words so I don't sound hokey. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know the
yeah, because I know that people feel like you can be energetically attached to
yeah,
or attacked or energy draining and all of that stuff. And I used to believe that. I don't believe that anymore when I'm in an alignment to myself, that I'm
right.
within my own
Yeah.
container and that
Right.
I'm not being penetrated by the only way that I could be penetrated by the outside sources is whatever's going on up here.
True. True.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is it's like we're a conduit of fear or
Mm,
worry, or I need to match, or I need to be part of the society, or we're in a conduit of the
mhm,
highest creative energy possible. And that's
mhm,
so abundant that if somebody wanted to siphon it off of us, there's
mhm.
so much of it that they're just going to get whammed with it. There's an endless supply of energy and
Yes.
chi, or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
whenever we call upon it, whenever we are aware that we're blocking it and we open up to it. You could have the worst psychic vampire in the world stand next to you, and that they will have everything that they need, as long as you don't interact with them, as long as you don't play the game
Right.
and do the dance. You
Yeah.
still have to do the practice, so that
Yes.
what gas station are you going to? You make sure you go to the right gas station.
Mhm.
As that was what I thought about that idea of a gas station. I thought, oh, that makes so much sense. What's fueling me? It's because this person over here is driving me nuts, and now they're starting to fuel me, and I'm not in source anymore. Does that say?
Well, it's interesting because I was working with a lady last night. I'm a medium as well, so I'm
Cool.
just asking you like, oh,
Oh,
where did that come
nice.
from?
Yeah.
But I was working with a lady last night who was like, but I'm feeling this energy. I can't stop this pain. I can't stop this thing from happening. I kept on trying to tell her about your awareness, right? So I love what you were saying, right? If you're standing on a street corner and this person comes to you and they have this energy of negativity, because we're empathetic or sentient beings, that we could feel it, but it's still within our choice to decide whether we attach or not, whether we allow our awareness to stay there or not. I mean, we still very much connected in the world,
Mhm.
but we still have choice. We still have power to keep our own power and
Yeah.
not give it to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a practice.
It is
That's,
a practice.
I mean, it's an awareness bringing stuff. We're socialized to pay
Mhm.
attention to everybody else around us,
Mhm.
and we've been socialized since the beginning in the dawn of humanity, so that we're group. We keep us, we feed each other, we keep each other alive. You see what I mean? It's like we would be, we don't do well alone, isolated. On the other hand, we tell each other all the baldest lies you can imagine to keep
Oh,
ourselves together. It's like ridiculous. So how can you be with socialized with people and
yeah.
still have, you got the source, you've got the true source running
Yeah.
through you. Sometimes you end up alone a little bit, but yeah, you don't have to buy into the drama. You could,
Um, I was reading what Tracy. Did you know that you could see people's comments and stuff?
well, no, like, well,
On the very top right, there's a comment tab. If you push on that, then you'll see people talking and
oh
commenting.
goodness, hello. Like, where's she reading all this really cool stuff?
But the interesting thing about what you said, Tracy, that stuck at me is love. It's having that loving practice. So even if you're standing next to somebody who's putting off all this energy, if you're standing within that loving energy, then it's harder. They're going to feel it as well. They're going
Yeah.
to feel your love,
Oh,
which is
they
something
are.
that they absolutely really need as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said more than that, but that's what really stuck out at me when
I
I
love that.
read what you put.
What did you ever? This is something I learned in learning Reiki or something, but I don't necessarily think it's just a Reiki thing. But when you are in that flow of a healing
Mm-hmm.
space,
Mm-hmm.
where you are, nothing is in between you and God. You're not above it all. You're just
Right.
breathing and calm, and you carry that energy into a space. Maybe nobody knows you, but that's the higher vibration that everybody else's vibration wants to match.
Mm-hmm.
You can change the whole dynamics of a group. You haven't said a word, and you're not forcing anything. You're simply aligning with that power,
Right.
and you're feeding it. It's feeding you. It's nourishing you, and it's outraying out. It's going out,
Right.
and that is a miraculous healing, as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
a miraculous healing is going to happen only when you're aligned with the source.
Yes.
I like to say source. I don't want to trigger anyone. Say anything
No,
else,
you're
but
not triggering anybody. You know, I like talking about that kind of stuff because everybody's thinking it, right? We
right.
all have these trigger words or these uncomfortable things that we go through based on our experience. But the more that we could talk about it and have, I think it too, when I first started my journey, you would hear people say like 5 different words for one thing. I was like,
Yeah,
why isn't
yeah,
everybody just saying the same thing? Why is
yeah,
there 5? And
yeah.
it's confusing. But I feel like we all grew up with the symbolism of God in some way, shape, or form. We've all been exposed to that. And some people, you know, really are okay with that. And some people are not, like what Eddie said, trigger warning, you know, because that word can be a trigger word.
Making me
But I
trigger,
feel
yeah.
like if we just go within our own heart space and we come to peace with our relationship with our spiritual beings, our team, you have the angelscape behind you. Angels are a
Yeah.
part of who we work with. We
We'll
have
go the
our
other way. Yeah.
ancestors. This is her book, Soul Art, Angelscape. I told her, you got to move that where you can see that. But it's all about our journey with our spiritual team that's here to help us along our journey. And the more we talk about it, then the more people can say, hey, that's how I feel about this. And I'm not alone, or I don't agree with
Oh,
that
that's
because this is
wonderful.
my experience. And
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah, it's okay. Um, it's just something popped into my head when you said trigger. You know, we want to avoid being triggered, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe we don't want to be avoid being triggered. Maybe
Exactly.
maybe we want to know, oh, that's my trigger. So what's triggering me, and what do I need to do to take care of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and what do I need to understand about myself, kind of that kind of thing, or maybe who knows what's underneath that trigger. If we go around being totally neutral about everything, it all goes inside because we're not neutral about everything. But knowing ourselves challenges us to be authentic in ourselves. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's exactly, which kind of brings us. In fact, I was just thinking about this a few minutes ago, round back to, we all feel like we have to be these perfect humans in this plant on this planet, being, I don't know, spiritually enlightened and perfect in all that we do, which isn't reality because it's not who we are. But I love what you said, because a trigger is just a sign for us to say, oh, there's a problem here. There's a hiccup that I need to go back and visit. Why do I have that hiccup and what can I do? I love, and I want to go back to it again for those that missed it, about you talking in the beginning about sitting in that silence with yourself. One of the things I didn't ask you there, because I know this is a big thing for a lot of people, how do you sit in the silence? Because my brain doesn't stop. I can't sit still. I'm constantly moving forward. I'm going to go clean my, I'm going to clean my floors or my lint in my dryer.
Yeah. Oh my God. I sometimes I sit in the silence. I just want to tell you this. The longest I've sit in the silence was probably a couple hours, and it's just amazing. But that was a miracle. 5 minutes sometimes, because that's I can only allow myself that time. I forget who has said, the Buddha or St. Francis. It said, somebody said, how long do you pray or how long do you meditate? About an hour. But I'm busy. I can't. I said then you need 2 hours, because you are in a place of. So I'm going to go back and answer that question. You're in a place of reaching out. You're living outside of yourself. You're not living inside yourself. So sitting in that space can happen in lots of different ways. What I do to give myself permission to do it is I just let my thoughts drop into my heart. So everything is heart centered here. And then the ones where I need to do something, I set them aside. My friend Lori Williams taught me how to do this. I have to give her credit for that. I set it aside. I said, I think, I have to pay those bills by the end of the day, but tonight, right now, I don't have to pay those bills. So I'm going to set them aside. Not when I'm done, I'll come back to them. The cat needs feeding. The laundry needs to come out of the dryer, but I don't need to do it right this moment. And I sometimes have to set it aside in the middle of my meditation. Then I breathe. Just let my breathing come, that yoga breath. Breathe in and hold, breathe out. Usually it's 4, 4, and 4. And your breath will tell your body that you're safe right now, and it brings you out of the fight or flight, like the when the dryer beeper goes off, we're in fight or flight to get that stuff out of the dryer before it gets wrinkled. That's not healthy to be that way. So the breathing tells us we're safe, we're okay, and we keep breathing. So return back to your breath. If only thing you could do is breathe calmly for 5 minutes, you're in good. And then the next step that I do is I just breathe in spirit. I ask spirit to come close. Breathe in spirit, and as I breathe out, I'm breathing out more of spirit's love to surround me. So breathing in spirit and breathing out. And there's many levels and layers that you'll travel down. You'll get the busy mind, and the busy mind's going to fight you until you start to relax. You know how you're watching TV and the busy mind's not working so much? So just get to that receptive, easy place. And then you'll drop down, and then you'll start to see or experience all these amazing thoughts, which are wonderful, and just let them go. But you want to go underneath that. Or when I say underneath, just deeper. You go deeper into that to a place of calm and peace, because you don't want to be, you don't want to do. So if you've seen these amazing thoughts and wisdoms coming towards you, that just save that for later and go underneath and see if you could hold that quiet space. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. Actually, when you get used to it, sometimes it becomes, I don't want to leave this place.
Oh, yes.
And you jump, and you're going up and down the levels all the time. Just their breath brings you back down to your peaceful level. And set a timer. If you're really that worried about the time, set a timer and say, right now, my permission is I can give myself 10 minutes to do this. So you could relax and trust that the timer is going to take you out in time for you to do all the stuff you got to do. So there's a trust building. So permission, setting aside, everything is heart-centered, and breathe deeper and deeper and deeper. I think that's kind of complicated, actually, but it's kind of simple. That's how I do it.
I think it's very simple. The only thing that I would add to that is no judgment or expectation,
Yes.
because it is what you called it, a practice.
Yeah.
So some days we do it fabulously and some days we don't. And it's just the way that it is. So it is a practice to
It
do.
is, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so healthy. It's so nurturing. You're nurturing your body, you're nurturing your mind, you're letting your soul talk to you, you're going on a picnic. It's really quite beautiful and important.
Mm-hmm. I
And
love what Tracy said. Sometimes you just don't want to come out of it. When you really
absolutely.
get into it, you're like, oh, that timer went off and I'm going nowhere. I just want to stay here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it is healing and very loving. I mean, I've been doing it for years and I can't imagine life without it. I mean, and there are times, even though I've been doing it for years, where I'm like, oh, this
I
is
can't
not
do
going
it.
to be a quiet the mind day. And then other times you're just like, I'm not leaving.
Not leaving.
We're human.
Yeah, not the quiet the mind days. I've had days. Do you ever have these really bad days where you just I have this to do and this to do and this to do? Mercury's in retrograde, so everything you do is kind of like taking twice as long. But and you just feel like there's not enough hours in the day.
Mhm.
When I stop and I sit, even if I'm sitting like right now, I'm staring at my computer talking to you. If I just stop and don't even leave my computer and bring myself back to center, is what I call it. Um, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but very slowly, very gently, I'll start to be more productive in a more easier way. So sometimes I have to do it many times during the day, just just enough breathing to get me back to that place. So just what I'm trying to say is 3 seconds is great.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a very good point, because we all have that. I've had that where you're just pushing and the day's really hectic. You just need to take that time. I think it does bring you back into center and back to yourself, just to remember, which is important.
Remember that you're one with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're one with source. You're not alone. You're beautiful. You're awesome. And life is good.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the middle of a hurricane, to find that life is good is pretty cool.
Okay, well, I haven't experienced that. Does that really happen? You were in the middle of a hurricane?
Well, not a real hurricane, but
Okay.
my world is, well, actually, no, I have been in, but the tornado, or what, comparing it to weather, it is the intensity of light is ramped up so high that there's just you can't picture getting past it. I've done this in hospital rooms. I've done this when before surgery, after surgery. I've done it when I'm trying to balance my checkbook.
So I'm going to go full circle now. So you were talking in the beginning. Oh, shoot, it left me. Oh, it did. It left me. I guess I wasn't supposed to talk about it.
Oh, darn.
It'll come back.
It will. It will. I promise you it will.
I don't. That is really weird. I was thinking about the hurricane that's what it was. The hurricane in people's lives. That's why I let it go. People have hurricanes in their life, right? And I feel like, we tend to not know how to get through the hurricane. And I know that this is a big part of the hurricane, but I want to come back to, again, just reiterate it, because I know a lot of people are experiencing a lot of difficult times. And it is about just being kind and loving to yourself. I want to come back. I guess the thing with what Tracy said about loving yourself is really important, is remembering that that's the most important thing to do, because sometimes we're not going to be calm. Sometimes we are going to be calm. And we just have to remember that those hurricanes are only moment, because you talked about going through this divorce, and yet you come to the end where you're like, am I going to be able to go forward? And I'm facing that right now. Actually, I'm going through a divorce right now.
I'm so sorry.
Me too.
Call me later. We'll talk. Yeah.
But, remembering that this is only that moment of time, and that you are going to get to the other end. And what were some of the things that you did? I know that you talked about the experience you had with sitting in the stillness and your team coming to you. What were some of the steps that you took to move forward, or know that this is just a moment and I'm going to be able to go forward?
That's a good question, because I'm going back through place. I just went to some of the awful places in my life where I didn't think it would ever go end. But I think the first thing is I had to accept where I am, surrender to where I am.
Yeah.
I went through a divorce about 4.5 years ago, and not ready to talk too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't see my future. I couldn't see where I had to move. I had to pack my stuff up. I had different people in my life, and I couldn't even see where I was going to live, which is odd for somebody like me. Usually you could kind of forecast or see or ask spirit. I couldn't even hear guidance. So what I did was accept it. And I turned it over to God. I turned it over to my buds, and then baby steps through it, breathing, or I can't. Okay, this is all I can handle, and I was willing to stop, and I stepped back and do some more breathing. I have to make a big decision now. I don't know how to make the decision, so I sit the power, not to escape the decision, but to give me that peace and calm so that I could believe in myself enough to make that decision. And then it built on itself slowly, until and while it was building, interesting enough, that's when I saw more signs and more synchronicities than I'd ever seen in my life before. And it was beautiful, and encouraging. Again, frustrated with how slow things were going in my mind and my body. They're probably going, if somebody looked at me from the outside, thought I was fine, but inside it felt like not so fine. So that's how I did it. I was willing to feel it, willing to surrender and love myself through it, and not judge myself. But the sitting in that quiet space, that's when it can only happen for a couple minutes at a time. As a matter of fact, I sat in that quiet space and would fall sound asleep, and I would be very frustrated with myself.
Oh, and then I'm with you on that one.
And I'd say, why? And then I'd hear this little voice says, "You're that tired. You're that." But when I wanted to fall asleep, it was very difficult to fall asleep. So there was a lovely, nurturing healing coming from my soul and my source that says, "We have you." So it was a building of a relationship to a higher power where I trusted that they had me. So I was building a reciprocal relationship to a higher power, which before everything was in my own back pocket and my own basket, and I had to take care of it. So there's something in those kinds of crises that can actually challenge you to have that loving back and forth relationship with your higher power.
Again, I see that pendulum, right? It's about the emotions that we're going through and bringing them back into alignment, because, I felt that way too. A lot of times it's like, how am I going to even breathe? How am I going to go to the next step? But I love how you said that with each baby step you take, you start seeing more and more synchronicities or things happening, and you stop pushing. And then, you may have that false start, that move forward, move back. You may have a lot of different experiences, but it's moving through those experiences. But the biggest thing that I've learned is just having that close relationship with my team and knowing that they're helping me through. And I've had that recently more so, because sleeping when you're going through a divorce is not something you do. And
sorry,
it's 3:00 in the morning. I am going to be up. You can message me at 3:00 in the morning. I will probably answer. But it's that process that you're going through of just having that self-love and that compassion for yourself, because that's what helps you to keep learning. And there's other times where you call your friend and you go, "What the hell is going on?" You
got to have friends like that.
But go ahead.
Well, you got to have friends like that, but then you rotate them so they're not all getting the same phone call. But
I need to expand my friends. One keeps getting the phone call. Help, I'm on the ledge. But it is a process of learning. That's all it is.
It is.
To know that you actually will get to the other side of that, so you can learn more.
And look at it. Here's in one of my meditations, this is something that I got, and I'm still wrapping my head around it. You're in a state of grace.
Yes.
When you're in that place, you're in a state of grace, and really embrace that. There's a rune that says, I forget which rune it is, but it's for a time, stay empty. You have
Mhm.
lost everything. Stay empty until you feel that click, and
Mhm.
you know for sure it's time to move forward.
Mhm.
So that's a state of grace. That's a state of I feel that our guardian angels have us 100% or 200%, and that our soul, it's a soul appointment. And I've said this to myself 1,000 times and to my clients, where you're
Mhm.
in the middle of a soul appointment. You're at a
Mhm.
soul redirect. It's time. It's time for the life that you had, and the beliefs and the structure that you had. You're funding that structure so much, but it's no longer serving you, but you can't see it. So now
Yeah.
the structure of the universe is disassembling it for you. That's why I
Mhm.
call it a state of grace. So the universe knows what's going on. There's disassembling it so that you could step into a new form that serves you better. And
Isn't that beautiful?
yeah,
It really is beautiful. Why would we want to keep living a life that we keep like Groundhog's Day? You just do the same thing over
I
and over
know,
again.
but it's so safe and comfortable, and I don't want to change it.
But it's fun. I actually like newness, but I
Yeah,
don't like what you said, the tornadoes or the hurricanes. Those are not fun.
those
But
are,
it's
yeah,
really, if you think about it, the fact that we somehow evolve through our lifetime. And really, if you look at the most of the time, an overall picture is usually a graceful one.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not always the turmoil and the issues.
Well, if somebody were stepping outside of your life, seeing what you were doing, they would see something else. But what you're
It's,
feeling inside of yourself is totally not that.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Y'all hear that? Because it's so true. Absolutely. We all know that, right? And Jacqueline, to you, it's going to be Pacific Standard Time at 3 o'clock, not Eastern Time at 3 o'clock. Just want to caveat that one. No scheduling calls at Eastern 3 a.m.
Oh my
Want
God.
to point that out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. But anyway, do you have any last, I think, golden nuggets that you would like to leave everybody? I mean, we've been all over the gamut on this.
I know. This has been fun. It's not even, I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. I said, we're going to be, but what, one thing that has comforted me
Mm-hmm.
so much is, it took me forever to get. Your soul knows what to do. Your
Yes.
soul knows what you're going through. Your soul's got your back. It's your best friend ever. And so taking these times to be quiet and to reconnect with that soul and the soul's language and the soul's energy,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get the answer that you need. You'll get the energy, the movement that's going to take you to the best place possible. You're not alone.
I think to
Want to
remember
be.
that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
sometimes we can forget that, but that's so
Yeah.
beautifully said because it is true and it always happens, but sometimes we forget.
Yeah, I'll like wake up in the morning and remind yourself. That's how often we forget. But
Yeah, exactly.
so that's a project that I'm working on. Let's just say it's not something I've come to and I wrote it down and I have it. It's a project I'm working on.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny. You reminded me when I first started my journey and I didn't even know what end was up. It was like my whole world was turning upside down. My whole reality, what I believed
Yeah.
was the truth I'm seeing is not my truth anymore. And I remember sitting in my office. I have a window and there's a lounge there. And I would just listen to the birds sing.
Hmm.
And just to hear the birds sing brought me back to, as I think it was Tracy said, grounding. Yeah, it was
Oh,
Tracy.
good. Yeah.
It brought me back to just that grounding of what this whole
What
world
it's
is
all
really
about.
about. It's
Yeah.
the birds are out there, the animals are out there living their best lives, doing them, and they don't have
Hmm.
to worry about tomorrow or 5 minutes
Well,
from now.
no,
They
they
just
don't.
live.
They live, and I'm going to say something really fresh.
Hmm.
They eat each other up too.
Well, we weren't going to go there.
I know. I'm sorry, but
Do that.
what I'm saying is that sometimes we want to go for that peace. We
Right.
want to go for that with that gentle, loving, and I want that every single day of my life. But if my soul's going to redirect me to say, I want you to heads up, and I want you to. Why did I say that? I'm asking my guides. Why did you give me this snarky thing to say? It's because we're in a world where we are here to transform it. We're here to elevate it. We're here to create something new.
Mm-hmm.
And so taking those lovely breaks and stepping back and hearing the beautiful. You
Mm.
ever hear a flower? Just flowers and plants actually have sounds, and
Yes.
we're aligning ourselves to that higher power, but
Mhm.
don't lose sight of the world around us. I think
That's
that's
a
what.
very important add on to that. Absolutely. Because you can't be in la la land all the time. That's not what we're here for.
Darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But yes, the nurturing, the filling up your tank for the
Mhm.
right from the right source is very important, and it's very calming, very healing, and nurturing.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
but don't go. Don't pet the tigers if they're hungry. But I mean, I just want. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm being punchy like this.
Well, it is balance, right? We talked
Yeah,
about the balance of the male and the
yeah,
female, masculine, feminine. No, it is balance. I mean, I think for me, those moments were to bring me into balance.
yeah.
And sometimes you can be too much into that woo woo thinking where you need
Well,
to be brought out into
yeah.
the reality as well. So it can go both ways.
I had a marriage that lasted quite a while. I had a couple kids,
Mm-hmm.
and but it was very volatile,
Mm-hmm.
and there was one crisis after another, and so I started to go into crisis thinking
Mm-hmm.
after a number of years of this, and I went to a therapist. This
Mm-hmm.
is just starting my spiritual practice, and I said to her, when I get to my 25th anniversary party, I'm going to have to invite you. And she kind of looked at me like this, and then I went home and thought about it for a minute. And I said, I am using all of my tools to step back, calm myself, feel good, and then I go back into the war
Mm-hmm.
until finally I decided I didn't want to be in the war anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I stepped out of that, it was chaotic and painful and difficult, but it was definitely a soul redirect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why nurturing yourself
Mm-hmm.
versus escaping yourself, we need to nurture so that we can embrace ourselves.
Absolutely.
Just sorry I had to say that, but that's really
No,
let me off the hook on that
that's
one.
That's perfect because we can tend as human beings to escape in bad ways, and then we're not accomplishing anything.
Well,
You're
no,
just staying
yeah,
in limbo, and you still have the same issues when you escape. However you escape, there's many ways to do that.
yeah.
And sometimes we need to. I'm not saying that escaping
Oh,
is.
absolutely. Yeah,
Sometimes
no,
you need to
yeah,
escape, but
I
you have to know why you're doing it, and you can't do it all the time either. There's that
yeah.
again. It's the balance. It's that yin
It
and yang.
is.
You have to have both.
Exactly. And you can take that out of balance place into again into that sacred space, into that breathing in spirit. My intention for this meditation is to understand why I'm constantly in conflict,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then go into that healing space where everything is aside, and you're lining yourself up to that power that's going to bring you to a place where you're going to choose not to be in that conflict anymore.
Exactly.
That's the
Exactly.
choice. That's the power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And understanding that the why to, I think that's the thing with
Yeah.
choices, right? We have to understand our why to the choices.
Yeah.
Why are we choosing this or why are we choosing that? What's the bottom line to that?
You could, and if you don't have a why, you can't get to the why, there's no resolution to understanding it, then you have to say, is staying in this serving me or not?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
then maybe the why. I have a couple of whys that I don't know if they're going to show up until after I'm dead, but I have a list of things like I'm waiting to go to heaven to ask these questions.
I'm with you.
Like,
I have a
it's,
long list of whys that I would like to know the answer
whose
to.
purpose is that design? Who designed that one? But don't let yourself be stuck because you don't know why.
Right,
So whys are important. Lift up that hood and say what's really going on.
right.
Here is going underneath, and underneath is important to get to the root. But if you can't, and you know that you're in the wrong place,
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to say, I'm stepping out.
Right.
Help me, guide me, show me, and protect me.
Yeah.
I,
That's perfect because I am that's me. I need to have the whys. I ask whys.
yeah,
I'm a why person. I just am.
yeah.
But you're right. Sometimes we don't have to have the why. We just need to move forward either way.
Or the why isn't available.
Are right. It's not
Even more maddeningly, the why purposefully is being withheld from us.
Oh boy, have I had that conversation many a times. What the heck? Why can't I have that why? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your time and your beautiful voice and words with us.
Thank you, Joanne, and thank you for having me on. This has been a blast. This is
Oh,
my
good.
pleasure.
And thank you all for your comments and your questions and your input. And Jacqueline, I don't know about the 3 o'clock in the morning thing. Hi, Cassandra. Yeah,
Thank
so it
you.
was beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah, guys, now that I know where the comments are, I'm sitting here reading them all. But this is really wonderful. Thank you, Joanne, so much. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Take care,
Take
everybody,
care.
and have a good night. Bye.
Bye bye.